Hello, everybody. Welcome to SA Sociology Hub. My name is Thandeka and I. I have a master's degree in sociology, and I'm currently working as a UX researcher. Thank you so much for engaging with SA Sociology Hub and commenting. If you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe, and I am looking forward to engaging with you. In today's video, I will be talking about how we can understand our society using the Fees Must Fall movement and applying the sociological imagination, or how we can apply the sociological imagination and the theory of intersectionality, how personal troubles can become or translate to public issues. So the sociological imagination was coined by C.Wright in 1959, and he was arguing that neither the life of an individual nor the history of society can be understood without understanding both, right? So this means that we need to, in order to understand individuals, we need to see what is the relationship between self or the individual and society. Or in order to understand societal problems, we need to see how that relates to individual issues, to analyze human behavior. So how a person's trouble can translate to being a public issue, right? So now imagine Mthokozisi, who is born in a poor family, right? Elokshini. His mother is a domestic worker. His father is a garden boy. Yeah, let's say a garden boy for argument's sake. Mthokozisi goes to a public school, primary, and then he moves on to secondary or high school. And then, but he passes really well, and he would like to further his studies. Mthokozisi is now faced with having to go to a university to complete or to further his studies, right? But now, because he's born into this family, his mother and father cannot afford to pay university fees. So now, how can we use the sociological imagination to solve trouble ka Mthokozisi, right? Firstly, Mthokozisi has a right to education, like everyone in South Africa. Secondly, Mthokozisi, because he's born into a family that was historically disadvantaged, he now finds himself disadvantaged as well. In South Africa, there was the apartheid, and which secluded people according to their race. So people of a certain race could get benefits because of their skin color, and some were disadvantaged because of their skin color. But Mthokozisi, he finds himself in a very difficult position because, yes, in South Africa, people are classed according to race. So there's other races that were initially placed to be, or that were said to be better than him. So now he finds himself extremely disadvantaged, right? So let's say, for argument's sake, he manages to get some form of registration, and then he gets onto the university. But 3 months down the line, he realizes that there's this protest that is happening. And now Mthokozisi realizes that, no, man, it's not just me that's going through this problem. He finds that there are coloreds, there are Indians, and other blacks who are disadvantaged and cannot get funding for to further their studies. So in 2015, there was a hashtag Fees Must Fall protest. This protest involved students who were fighting for a free decolonized education for all. So by decolonized, we mean an education that is not talked about from a European perspective. It means it allows for African thought. It places things as they are, and so an education that is African, that is catering to the African context. That's what decolonization means, right? So education that is not spoken in the words of the decolonizer, of the colonizer, right? But in this fees must fall movement, yes, everyone has a right to education. There was a historical injustice that has put so many people in society into this trouble that we find today. So now we realize that Thokozisi's inability to further his studies or to continue his studies in a university is not just his problem, it's a public issue. 25% of graduates in South Africa drop out as a result of financial exclusion. So, and according to Business Tech, you need at least an average of 55,900 a year. That's what you needed in 2023. And these are expected to rise in the coming years. So, we are also in that, we're facing this challenge today as a society, in that because of inflation, universities have had to increase their fees for between 5 to 7%. So this is not just a Mthokozisi issue. It's a societal, it's no longer just Mthokozisi's trouble. It's a societal issue. So because there's this issue, the students in 2015 gathered and protested to say, we would like to get free education. Right? So the people that were protesting were not just blacks. It was the non-whites as well as the whites. But now there's also a finding that the students that were protesting, the white students that were part of the protests, were mainly supporters. And this is the case in South Africa. Blacks are the majority poor in our country, followed by coloreds and then Indians. And then only 1% of whites were considered to be poor in South Africa. So this is a racial issue, it's an economic issue, right? And it's a right to education issue. This is how we apply the sociological imagination. So you look at it and say, okay, this person is faced with this trouble, but let's now wear our sociological lens to see what else, dive deeper into seeing what could be, why is this person like this? What is happening in our society that translates to this person being in this situation, right? So now let's talk about the theory of intersectionality. These characteristics that I have talked about, that students in South Africa face, that they are faced with a challenge, a racial challenge, an economic challenge. And this doesn't only end there. It also affects their chances of getting a job, right? So now that's where this theory of intersectionality comes in. And it's a way to, it's a theory that was coined by Kimberle Crenshaw, who was arguing that there are different, for example, she was arguing about how class, race, gender, and other individual characteristics that are used in our society to characterize people, how they intersect with one another to further maybe oppress. But this is not, I'm not using this as a point of victimization or to say, like how a lot of people use the theory. But she was arguing that how people get injustice because of where they are placed, of the intersection that they are in, maybe an intersection of race, an intersection of class, an intersection of age, right? So this intersection all comes at us, at this person. And so all these characterizations take away from a person moving further to society or getting justice because they should, and she was using a case of these women, black women who were not, she was using a case of women who were not, who didn't get, so she was using a case of women who didn't get justice because they were black women, so, and she's arguing that we need to do away with treating people a certain way because of their race and their gender. But in the fees must fall case, we need to give students an opportunity. We need, yes, in as much as we understand and can imagine what they are going through, we need to give people an opportunity if you passed well, you should be in a university, whether or not you can afford or not. You know, I don't think a person needs to be disadvantaged because because of their race, or because they can't pay. So that's what the theory of intersectionality would, or how I think it would argue the case of the Fees Must Fall movement. I hope we understand what the sociological imagination is, that we use it, we wear this lens to analyze what the relationship is between society and individual behavior, or society and individuals. And by individual behavior, we can understand why students had to protest. In the South African history, protests have become a way in which the disadvantaged speak out, and that is one way that government responds to it. So I hope that makes sense, and I think you understand why students would protest instead of just going to ask, I don't know, finding any other way. It's a cultural thing. So I hope that makes sense. In conclusion, the sociological imagination is a lens that we can use to analyze our society. And we understand that with each individual, every individual finds themselves in a crossroad that has different characteristics coming at them, because that's where they are placed in society, right? So I think we can use the sociological imagination to not only talk about problems, but also try and find solutions to our social problems. For example, how a person can use a personal solution to translate into societal development. And having used these two theories, we can understand that Mthokozisi's case is not just his problem. It's something that affects thousands and thousands of students, and that is something that's still ongoing. So someone could even argue, is apartheid even over? But that's an argument for another time. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you have found it to be valuable, and that it can be used as a tool to understand your context or your society much better. Please don't forget to comment, to like, to share, and to subscribe. All right, see you next week. Bye.